All right, well, it's 1 o'clock, time to get started. Hello and welcome to the Alpha Anywhere demo and Q&A. I'm Dave McCormick from Alpha Software, and I'm pleased to present Dion McCormick, no relation, who is our lead solutions engineer here at Alpha Software. Today, Dion will be demoing some Alpha Anywhere tips and tricks and techniques, and he'll be here to answer your questions, which you can go ahead and enter now into the questions box out of the GoToWebinar control panel. I'd like you to know that today's session is being recorded. You'll be able to find a copy of this and the other recordings at videos.alphasoftware.com. So let's begin. Hello, Dion. Are you there?
Yes, indeed. Here I am. How am I coming through?
You're coming through great. Let me go ahead and make you the presenter.
Great.
You should see a dialog box on your screen.
Never seen that one ever before.
Yeah.
Sorry. Hey, how are you doing today? Hey, and thank you, everybody. Missed you last week. I know it was a great presentation, and I missed it. And I'm really excited about being online with everybody. I want to say first, thank you so much for joining us. I see some familiar names on there, and I just really love to have the participation both for new people into the Alpha environment and also experienced Alpha developers who are just looking to get some new tips and tricks and things like that. Very important. The most important aspect today is your questions, and in fact I've got a little presentation regarding a question that came in while we were away. So if you don't mind, look on your GoToWebinar control panel, the questions area, and submit your questions now. Dave will be monitoring those and getting them sequenced up as soon as possible. And also just remember, if you have questions, feel free to send them to guides@alphasoftware.com. That's Guides at alphasoftware.com, and that way we can get a heads up on what you're interested in, prepare and be ready to go. In fact, this question came in today, so I've got a little quick demo, and then we'll open it up for Q&A for anybody, so get those questions in now. A lot of exciting, just a little quick update, a lot of exciting things. There's been some new capabilities that are starting to come online in the pre-release version, a better part of our overall roadmap. One in particular is the ability to wrap SOAP services, which is a very common situation out in the field. Also, there's a lot of improvements in terms of calling RESTful services also, so we're planning to do a few demos of those in the near future just to give you a feel for what's coming down the road. It's very exciting and really allows you to build a web-enabled or web API enabled system to be able to reach out and use external APIs to help build your solutions. Very exciting stuff. So the team is very, very busy in terms of putting together the roadmap we've gone over, and they're moving along great, and it's very, very exciting about what's going on, and we'll be showing you more of that as it starts to hit. So with that, go ahead and get your questions in there, but I had a question from a viewer, from actually something I did about 3 weeks ago. I showed a quick example of how to code up something within the system, specifically connecting into a database environment. And I was actually able to do it very quickly in the demonstration, primarily because I cheated. And that's always an important thing as a developer, is that whenever possible, cheat to improve your productivity and get things done faster. And there's actually one very nice built-in capability into Alpha, which I use extensively to help me basically move faster and, more importantly, be more consistent, and last but not least is just be more productive. And so I'm going to go over that today. I'm going to talk about the code library function. Now, most people, you're not really going to have to do a whole lot of coding. That's one of the benefits of Alpha in terms of your ability to do grids and lists and other things there. But every once in a while you'll be diving in doing code library, and you will have a need to do so, or into the XBasic, where you're doing XBasic to maybe do an AJAX callback or add a little function or do something that's very interesting. So with that in mind, Alpha has built into it something called the code library. And what the code library does, it's very fast and easy to use. I'm going to do a demonstration of it today. It saves you an enormous amount of time, but most importantly, it brings consistency to your code. And I'll talk about that more in a few moments here. And most importantly, it increases your productivity by promoting code reuse. Now, Alpha has very extensive capabilities in XBasic to do class libraries, other things like that, which obviously will promote code reuse, but sometimes you're just building little scripts to do things. And if you're consistent in terms of how you build those scripts, the more consistent you are, the more reliable your application will be, and the more productive you'll be. So with that, no further ado, I'm going to go ahead and do a quick demonstration just to kind of explain it and answer any questions you may have. So I'm going to pop over into my development environment, and I am in my demonstration here. And for people who are new to Alpha, this is our standard development environment, runs on Windows. And in this case, I'm at the Web Projects Control Panel, where I'll go ahead and put together a little quick demonstration on how to do it. So first, just to kind of set the stage, I'm going to click New here. I'm going to select Web Component, and I'm going to have a UX right there. And so I'm going to click that and open up and create a UX. And a very simple, plain kind of UX right here. So nothing very exciting, but you'll see over on the left we have our different controls, so we can add our text boxes, radio buttons, check, labels, whatever we happen to do. We can also go down here and say add a button to our system and put a button in here. So we're designing our form where it goes here. Now on the left, if you look below here, and in the last couple sessions we went over server-side events, and I want to touch on, in those scenarios you're using XBasic to do different tasks. So let's take a great example. I'm just going to create an XBasic function here. So actually, let's see. Let me go into the server side. So you'll notice on the server side, this on dialog initialize. And if you do the sessions from about 2 weeks back, we went into extensive detail wherein before the UX is delivered to the person on the mobile or web client, it actually goes in and runs this XBasic code. And this is all XBasic. So you can set controls. You can set state variables to use later on. You can submit JavaScript out. So there's a lot of really cool things you can do on there. And so all of this in here is going to be XBasic code. And as you start doing that, you'll find that you're going to come into and have common things you're doing with XBasic. So a great example of that is this. Whenever you're using XBasic, and this is a topic for a whole other session, is you want to do an on error go to and error underscore handler, and then down here you have error handler, and then do some stuff if it blew up, and then end here. So the idea is that this is a common practice where if any error gets thrown while your code is running, it's going to jump down here and run this little piece of code here to die gracefully or give the user a warning or something like that. So whenever you do an XBasic, it's always good practice to surround your code in on error. So if you get something weird happen, it just doesn't go off into la-la land. It allows you to trap that. Now, as you can see, there's a number of different components. There's the initial, and then there's this end, which stops the regular execution, then here and here. So after a while, you're writing this over and over and over again. Kind of gets boring. So, and if I make a typing error when I'm typing this in as I go, you know, something like that, then I'm actually introducing errors into the situation. And you'll notice it's doing your dynamic, but hey, why have to spend time on that? So I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to show you a real cool trick. I'm going to put my position right here, and I'm going to right-click and open up the right-click menu. So I'm just putting my editing position right here. I'm doing a right click, and then I go down here, you'll notice that there's a cool little menu item called Code Library, and you'll see that I have a whole bunch of little code library items already put together, and you'll notice you'll see one right here. I've got Error Handler, and it's already there on error go to Error Handler. So for instance, I can sit there and go, okay, boom, and you'll notice it's just basically a smart clipboard it puts in there, and then I can go down to here, and I can go into my code library, and I could say end error handler, and here is my standard script. So basically, I take these pieces of text and I can save it in my code library, so whenever I need that, I have it ready to go. So now I can then start coding up the rest of my code, and I'm off to the races from there. And the great thing about that is that it saves you a lot of typing. It makes your code very consistent because every time you put this in here, it's basically a smart scrapbook, so it's doing the same thing. And you can put some very complex things in here. For instance, I'm going to go ahead and do this one again in a moment, but I'm going to go in here and I'm going to put in here my standard database. So look at this. I have my connection to my database environment, my connection string, my code to actually do that, a sample query. And so now I don't have to go look and feel and find where all that's at. I can basically just put that in, and now I just have to go in and make edits to whatever I want to change in here and make the behaviors change. And you're not limited by a few of them. So it saves you a lot of typing. And what's great is that since your code is using consistency over and over again, then debugging is faster, your reliability goes up in pieces here. It's a very easy tool to use, and I want to go ahead and show you how to do that. So if you'll notice before, when I did it, I actually had two parts, which was error handler. So actually, I take that back. Is that I had set this up as two parts. So I had actually I've already got that. So I can actually just sit there and say error handler, and it puts in both the top part and the bottom part. Pretty easy stuff there. But let's say you want to do your special secret code. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do something here. I'm going to here is my super secret special code. X equals X plus 1. Let's go ahead and do this. We'll make it even fancier. Dim X as in X equals X, and something like that. So now what I can do is I just highlight that code, because I'm going to reuse that over and over again. I right-click on it, go to Code Library, and go Add Selected Text to Code Library. So now I go, boom, opens this up, and I go, I can give it a title so I can have a nice user-friendly name, secret code.
Dan, I'm seeing about, sorry to interrupt, but there's like a 5-second lag or something between what you're saying.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm moving a little too fast today. I'm sorry.
A slight bit slower. Yeah, it should still be followable. Thanks.
Okay, no, thanks for the heads up on that. So I write my prototype code, basically what I want to have. So you'll see in a few moments that I basically have my prototype code right here. So all I do is I highlight that code, and once that code is highlighted, then I can right-click on that highlighted code, and you'll see it will come up with my right menu. And the key thing in there is you'll see that there's the code library that has the code library available. And if you look at the very top of the code library, you have a command called Add Selected Text to Code Library. So once I've developed my code, I can put it in there, and all I have to do is select that item. It's now going to bring up a little dialog box, and you'll notice in here that it's kind of taken the first line and put it into as a description. But I may want to have a better description, so I'm going to type in, for instance, super secret code. So I'm putting in my own little sort of easy to read, remembering name for that, so that it's easy for me to find. And it's showing my existing ones over here. Now you'll notice there's also a different option, or an extra option, called Put on Right-Click Menu. So you can actually go in there and click on that and put it on the right-click menu, and I'll show you how that works in a few moments here. So what I've done is I've selected the code, I've given it a nice, easy-to-remember name, and I've said put right-click menu favorites, and when I click OK, what it's going to do now is save that into my code library. So I'm going to go back to my user interface. It's gone ahead and done, and I'm going to delete the existing code that's on there. So now I have a blank screen. So now what I can do is I right-click on that location, I go down to Code Library, and you'll notice that now I have a new item here called Super Secret Code. And so basically it's added that into here. And then what I can do is click that, and you'll notice that that code I just highlighted, selected, and saved is now available for use. Very, very cool there. So that's kind of a nice, easy way to create little code snippets that you're going to use over and over and over again. And it speeds your coding because you're not going, oh, wait, I have to go find where I did that before and look it up and then copy it and then come in here and paste it. Often it's been a month or so since you've used something like that. So there's really kind of cool ways you do stuff you really want to encapsulate and put in here. Now there's a couple other cool little things you can do in here, which is kind of nice. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to highlight this because I want to create another snippet out of it. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to click Code Library, and then I'm going to go up here to Add Selected Text to Code Library, And actually, no, I've done that, so I wanted to show you that. But wanted to show you how you can manage this information. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just right-click anywhere on the screen and go to Code Library, and I'm going to say Code Library right here. So these are all my saved ones here, and here I'm going to click Code Library. And you'll notice that, oops, what's going on here? What's going on? Why is that not showing up? Oh no. Okay. I'm going to open up a different one real quick and go into my code library. Oh, it's not showing up. I'm having a bad day today. Basically what this allows you to do is manage your code library, and I'm sorry, I guess it's underwhelming since you're not able to see it. So let's do this, just make sure this works. I'm just going to start and restart. By the way, I'm using a pre-release build for testing some of the new features. That's probably why I'm seeing a little gotcha there. You will not have that experience. Okay. Let's see if this solves the problem here, so bear with me. It'll catch up in a moment. Yeah, I must have a gotcha today because of the latest release build on that. So I apologize on that. Suffice it to say is what you do is you right-click on it, you go Code Library, and you go to Code Library. It's going to open up a pane over here, and this pane will allow you to edit and modify and delete. So you can basically manage your code library at that point in time. So it's really, let's see if there's another way for me to open this. There's code. Oh, you know what? Let me try it here. Let's do this. And this also, by the way, works when you're in the XBasic editor. So let's go Code Library. There we go. Okay. It must be something because I was in a UX, so bear with me. So you'll notice in here that now what I did, just to let everybody know, since I went a little fast there trying to fix it, is that I went to the traditional control panel, and this is where you can write little pieces of XBasic functions and other things like that. I'm just going to click New Script using XBasic Editor, which opens up a script editor much like you would see in a UX. And again, anywhere on here I could use the same technique. I could put my super secret code and it drops it right in there. But I can also right-click on here. I'll let it catch up for a moment. And I'll go to Code Library, and I'll actually open the code library. And I'll expand this out a little bit so you can see it over here. So this is my code library. This is how I manage all of those snippets. So you'll notice in there I had a different one here. Like I had this one I showed you before where it only inserted this and this, but I now have a nice one which will insert everything. So I don't really need these two little snippets anymore. So I can select a snippet and delete that and now get rid of it out of the code library and do that. So I can get rid of it, so I can kind of clean that. And then I can also add things to it. I can edit it, like an editor library. So let me look at my super secret code that I created. You'll notice that it does, here's my super secret special code, and in here it has that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that snippet. I'm going to click the Edit Library Entry button, which is up at top, and that will allow me to then edit that entry. And you'll notice in here I can come in here I say I just want it to be secret code, and from there, and then I can click OK, and now that I've edited that, I'm going to go in here and put in my super secret code here, and you'll notice that it is now putting in that new edited code versus the previous code. So very handy there, and so you can do that. And one thing you got to understand, which is really cool, is that you can actually have multiple libraries and be able to access different multiple libraries. So I'm using this as XBasic. I have my own special one I created, but they also have a library for HTML, so it's any kind of snippets that you need. And you can organize those into different libraries, although I find one library is usually enough. In fact, one of my favorite is I just put debug1 in there because I'm always typing that during my debugging sessions. So I can just sit there and go code library debug1, and boom, it just slams it in there. I don't have to type it. I don't have to worry about any spaces or things like that. It's very straightforward, easy to use. Now I want to show you one other little cool trick you can do with it, which is very handy. And I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that with an example. So I'm going to go, this is my cool code. and I'm going to put here cool. So I go, here I go, and then I'm going to say dim string, my string as C equal to, and normally I'd put in whatever it is, like hello there, like something like that, and then I can say, my left, my string, comma 1. So I've created this cool little thing that just dims a string and then puts the left there, but I can do something pretty cool. I'm going to go ahead and highlight this, and I'm going to right-click on it, and I'm going to go to Code Library, and I'm going to go ahead and add the selected text. So I'm going to add it as it is. So I click Go, and I'm going to call it cool code. Right, now I have my new cool code, so whenever I need that, I move to an empty spot, I right-click on Code Library, do my cool code here, and boom, it's put in there. Now, the only thing about that is that now I have to go in here and go, well, I really want this message to be hello world. Kind of a pain in the tail. So I have to kind of navigate up there, and I like to move quicker, and so I want to be able to modify this. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this out here. So we're going to go back there. You'll notice now my library is showing right here, and I've got my cool code there, so I'm going to go ahead and edit this. Okay. Now I'm in here, and notice this is my original snippet. Now this is very fun, very, very cool. So what I want to do is I'm going to go here, and I'm going to say, first I'm going to delete that so it's an empty, and then notice these little tips right here. I've got this one that says /IP, and so I'm going to go /IP, and I'm just going to put it in there. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So all I did was I erased that text, and then I put this little code /IP. Okay, so now watch what happens. I go in here, same thing as I did before. I'm going to go ahead and put in my cool code. I right-click on it, go to Code Library, go Cool Code, but notice something. Look at where the insert button is at. I can tell it where to put that insert. So now I can go, hello world, and I'm done. I didn't have to go back in here, delete that, and then start typing. Basically, I set it up so that when this gets instantiated, and I'll show you that again, basically I go in here, I right-click on it, I go to Code Library, I'm going to select Cool Code, and the Cool Code is going to insert that, but what it's going to do, which is really fancy, is it's going to insert it in with the edit spot already where I need it. So that's really powerful if like you're using something over and over again and you always need to change a piece of text or you always want to start coding at a certain point. You can put that into the system. Now there's one other really cool thing you can do too. And I'm going to show you this, and this will end up our demo for today. I'm going to go ahead and go my cool code here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to edit that code by clicking on the edit button here at the top. So basically I'm going to cool code. So here's my cool code, and there's my old command, but check this out. I'm going to add something in here, and I'm going to go ask C, okay, var dash, you'll notice I'm copying what's down here, dash ask C enter message. Okay, so I took this little piece of code here, var equals ask C there, and I put it in where I want it to be, which is inside those little double quotes. So instead of just putting an insert point, watch what happens now. Let's make sure this works. I go to my code library. I've updated it, so now I'm going to trigger my cool code.
We're about
and you'll notice
5 seconds behind for your screen, so we still.
Oh, okay.
Okay, now you've gotten to the right-click menu where you said code library.
Okay, so just to make sure people, I didn't go, okay. Good, thanks for the heads up on that. Yeah, sure. Just to make sure, what I did is instead of using the /IP between the quotes, I use a standard piece of text that says var dash ask C enter message right here. So you'll notice I added in that little piece of thing right there between my double quotes, which is sort of similar to what we did before. And so now that I've done that, I'm going to click and save that to my code library. I'll let it catch up for a moment there. So now I want to insert that piece of cool code here. So I'm going to right-click on it.
Oh,
You'll open up my
before you right-click
menu.
And the right-click menu has just opened. Okay.
Okay. Cool. you'll notice I have my code library down here. And on my code library, I have my cool code right here. And this is what I just changed and edited that. So now I'm going to click that. You'll notice something. Instead of just inserting the code, in a moment you're going to see a parameters window come up.
Yep.
So now I enter in there, and you'll see a dialog box. I'm going to say, hello webinar group. So I just enter in my parameter here. And then when I click OK here on the dialog box, you'll notice something. Not only did it render my code, but it took that little piece of essentially a parameter and put it between the two quotes. So that allowed me to really make this sort of an intelligent copy-paste, where not only will it paste an existing piece of code I put in there, I can put directives in there to allow me to do things, because then when I do this, I just type in that variable, it's going to be in the right location. I don't have to worry about copying, pasting, or editing or modifying there. So you can add these cool parameters in there, and let's go ahead and let's do one more experiment. You'll notice that in my cool code we replaced this information here, but maybe I also want to replace the number of items in this string I'm doing a left, so this 1 is kind of a variable there. So now what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and edit the cool code again by clicking the edit box. So I'll wait for this to come up. In a moment you'll see the edit code library entry dialog box coming up top, and it has my current there. I'm going to click and copy that little snippet of code there, and I'll paste it right here. So basically I put in that var-ascii inner message, and I'll go ascii number, and I'm just going to change that, so I'm giving it a different thing. It's a different variable essentially. So once that's in there, I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and that will save my updated cool code. Let it catch up. So now I'm back to my editor, and in my editor I'm going to go ahead and right click on it to add my new and improved cool code. So I'm going to go ahead, and the right click menu will show up. I'll go down to code library, and then you'll notice I have my cool code snippet ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and select that one, and in a moment you'll notice now instead of one parameter I'm getting 2 parameters. So I've got a dialog box because I put 2 parameters, and so I can go hello class, and let's say I wanted the number to be 5. So basically I'm filling out those different parameters. Now that I've got those parameters filled out, I can then click the OK button, and you'll notice in a moment that it's inserted into my code not only the hello class, but also that other numbers. So it replaced 2 parts of that, and you can have as many as you want. So you can get very sophisticated. You literally could create a whole set of things that would, say, write a whole database routine where you give it the table name and maybe the SQL query and some other things, and it would basically generate that code based upon the template. It's sort of a templating concept, and also the parameters that you fed it. And when you start doing things like that, you're going to find your coding, A, becomes much, much faster, because instead of typing, you're right-clicking and filling out a form, and 2, the reliability will be much higher, because once you have that one piece of code going, it works over and over. And more importantly is once that piece of code is going, by using the parameters to fill out, you don't have to forget, you can kind of know that you're not going to have the fumble finger situation where you accidentally, like for instance, let's say I just said edit that, and I put in hello class, and I forgot to put in my last double quotes, or I screwed up something like that. Those are little nits that slow you down. In this case, it's always going to be syntactically correct because you're going to use a template that you've already sort of proven, and you're just doing parameters that are in there. So this is a cool little feature, and that again came from a question because I was able to generate a pretty powerful script in a very short period of time on a previous webinar, and the reason why was because I was using this snippet capability, even at its base element of just saving things in there. And I'll tell you, it's really handy, and the more you use it, you'll find you'll use it more and more. It's kind of one of those things, once you discover it, start using it, you'll start to say, oh, wow, man, that's, I could do this, and then all of a sudden you add up and create a whole bunch of different ones that are available. And again, if you want to get fancy, you can do, for instance, put in HTML. You can create new libraries. There's a bunch of other pre-made libraries that are available already in there. So play with that. It's a lot of fun. And what you'll find out is that when you use this, it's fast and easy. It's going to save you a lot of time, especially if you do things over and over and over again. It's going to bring consistency because all of a sudden your code's going to look the same because it's going to have the same spacing, the same columns. I mean, a real powerful aspect is that you can, since you don't have to type it, you can put in a whole bunch of comments in your code that are pre-made. So if someone else picks it up, they're going to see the same comments over and over again. And in fact, if you pick it up 6 months later, those comments in your snippet will help remind you how that code was constructed and what it's supposed to do. And last but not least is your productivity is going to go way up. You're going to start reusing code snippets and code things. You're going to use them in the same way. You're going to be doing less debugging of strange errors and fumble finger kind of things and more executing code and getting it done right the first time. And so you can focus on the functionality and the other pieces there. So that's called the code library. I highly recommend as you start to do more XBasic callbacks and do other pieces like that, that you explore it. It really will save you a lot of time and energy, and it's something I use extensively to help me make sure I'm consistent, fast, and write good code. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn that over to Dave. I apologize everybody for the lag time there, but hopefully it wasn't too bad to be able to get the idea of what to do.
That's great. So the code library looks cool. Someone asked, is it only available for XBasic? Is it available in like the JavaScript editor or any of the other places?
That's a good question, and my thinking on that is yes, it is XBasic oriented.
Okay.
I don't think they added it to, notice that, I don't think they added that to the JavaScript side. We have obviously the ability, we have autocomplete on the JavaScript where it will actually watch what you're typing, but there, and I agree, I kind of wish, because JavaScript is actually for me even a little harder because it's a little, it's newer than BASIC, so it'd be nice to be able to have these little JavaScript snippets to be able to put in there. Now you could put them in, you're just not going to have them available on the right click, but you can, let's see if we can sit there and say view, I'm not sure if you can view that there, but you can keep this open and be able to just go in, copy the stuff out. It's not as useful, but you can have it as kind of a built-in, and this could be JavaScript code. So it could be a nice place for you to store your snippets along with your other ones there. But I agree, it'd be nice to be able to, I think we can insert placeholders and methods, which are basically kind of their online help kind of scenario. But as far as adding your own in there, I think that's limited on the JavaScript side. Good question, and something I've looked at. I'm not sure if there's any, since we're doing more and more JavaScript with Node and things like that, I'm not sure if that's on the roadmap to add those pieces into it.
Excellent. Thanks for letting me know. We have a couple people requested that if you could just go back to that cool code example. I just want to take a look at it on the screen just so that they can look it over.
Yeah, sure.
Just a little
by the way,
bit
isn't
fast.
that a great name for this demonstration?
Cool code.
Cool code.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is cool. It's dorky there. So, I wanted to show you one there, and then
all right. So that's
I'm going to put my insert here, and then I just put in /IP. So you'll see that down below is your kind of cheat sheet on how to enter in parameters, and also that insert point. That's what IP is. Is that
great.
after you paste this, you can put a combination of the two to say, okay, after I paste it, I've merged my parameters. I want it so it's here so I can maybe write what I want to do. It's usually you're going to one spot to write every time.
Nice. We had another question a little bit earlier, and I believe you addressed it though, which is can you use multiple ask variables? And you showed that, yeah, you sure can. But someone said, can you use the same ask variable multiple times? Like, could it fill in a couple different parts in your code?
Okay, let's try this. Okay, so what I did we'll let it catch up, is I basically collected that first one, and I've just basically duplicated. So let's see if it's smart enough to say, oh, only ask this once and enter it twice. So I click OK. So just before I do that, you see I did that. I basically copied the first and then put it in the second, and it uses the same. So now I'm going to go down here. So I'm back in my editor interface. I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to go to my code library, Cool Code, have it ready to go. So once I click that, you'll notice it's asking for...
No, it's waiting to catch up.
Okay, no problem.
It's entering enter a message and a number. It doesn't look like it's asking you for anything twice, which is good. So
so let's go, hello, cool class, and I'm going to give everybody 100 here.
All right.
So we'll try that. Click OK. Yeah, that works. So you can use that same bar in multiple spots inside your code, which is really powerful. That's really nice. So I can see where you, like if you have a table name, you want to be able to have it referred to 4 times. You don't have to enter it each time, but you'll notice that syntactically that's perfect. Well, actually it doesn't. When it goes left, it's going to throw an error. But now it's perfect. It's got the quotes in the right place. You notice it has commenting. Really is very powerful for you to write, and that's reuse is critical in terms of productivity, and also just making your code really easy to use and reuse and debug.
That's great. That answered that question. Here's a question sort of about the scope of the code library, and that is the code library, let me just find it real quick so I can ask it the right way. Right. Is the code library contents, is it bound to the web project, or is it bound to the whole workspace so you can use it in multiple projects?
Bound to the workspace. So it's available on any project.
Great.
Yeah, very handy. And you'll notice up here I've got this GKR up here. So, basically it's bound to the workspace so that anytime I open up a project, my standard codes are available. And again, I have lots of, if I wanted something to be project specific, I can organize my code because you can make it a tree structure. I mean, it's built to add a lot of snippets in there.
And if you wanted to use the same code library in a different workspace altogether, can you export your code libraries?
I think you can. I am not sure how to do that. I'd have to look up how you do that.
Okay.
And where it's stored. I don't see a command in here. There's copy libraries, but this is like from an older version of Alpha 5.
Yeah.
But oh, yeah. Well, this is interesting. If you do, okay. So let's look at this. It's showing me right here a little command showing me where my code libraries are. So let me copy that command to the clipboard. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and delete all this. Okay. And instead on here, I'm going to go message box. Okay. So let it catch up. So basically, there's a little command saying A5 get code library folder, which is going to tell you where it's secreted this code library to be around. So I'm going to run that, and that is where my code library is. It's in, it just happens to be where they located those code libraries. So my guess is you could copy it out of that, and then if you have a different box, copy it into that the folder on that machine, and then you should be able to restore the library, because I think they're just individual files for each library, and it stores the information in there. So that's one way you can migrate or back up and store your items from there.
Excellent.
But as you put in new versions of V12, it's gonna, it's not gonna overwrite your libraries. They're gonna be available each time. They don't get touched.
Excellent. A couple of things Alpha Anywhere, but not quite on the same topic. One has to do with the look and appearance of applications. We have someone who's asking, how would you integrate Bootstrap or another HTML5 or CSS code into an Alpha mobile application? So he's got a website. He'd like to move to Alpha, but he's not sure how to integrate the look with Alpha. How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, I mean, actually some very exciting things are going on in that area. In fact, there's some third-party developers who are working on creating Alpha Play Nice Bootstrap themes. So that is really gaining momentum out there, and you'll probably be seeing information on that very soon. sort of like the ThemeForest template library. What I found is that it does play nicely with Bootstrap. If you use, like, if you go buy an off-the-shelf template from like ThemeForest or someplace like that, what I find sometimes is that they include a whole bunch of other JavaScript, and the problem comes in not necessarily the CSS and HTML from a third-party template. What I find the challenge is that if there's a whole bunch of other JavaScript that is included with that template, sometimes that JavaScript clashes with Alpha's JavaScript, so things just don't operate the way they are. The JavaScript is, they're both trying to do something at the same time kind of scenario. So if you're just using the HTML and CSS to style your app, you should really have no problems. You basically bring that CSS into your application, and then you can reference those CSS classes on your thing, because everything is styled via CSS. I would suggest first is it a custom style that you built? If it is, then it probably is just CSS HTML. But again, Bootstrap really works really nicely with Alpha. It's something I like to give people a heads up. If you get an off-the-shelf template, there's often a whole bunch of other stuff they throw in there to make some cool features, and things bounce around and fly out and stuff like that. You may run into gotchas. So what I recommend always is to pare that template down to its bare minimum of the CSS, the HTML, and the Bootstrap libraries themselves, and then step by step re-add in the other JavaScript libraries to make sure that it doesn't interact. So kind of get it working with the base and then add those pieces in from there. And I think you'll find it's pretty successful at that point, and it plays pretty nicely from there. And I know Alpha's working hard right now to make that even more, kind of play nice with the Bootstrap, because that's such a dominant way for people to deliver themes, and a lot of people are very familiar on how to style and update Bootstrap. So it's kind of a high level answer. Is you should be able to do it. I'd need to kind of understand where you got the theme, if you developed yourself or if it's a brand new one or something.
Okay. We don't have a lot more questions, so please, by all means, go ahead and type them in right now. That would be very helpful to us. We do have one question here. Someone is asking about where all the different types of files reside on a development machine. I was wondering if we had specific documentation which says, yeah, this is where the projects live, this is where you'll find live preview, this is where you'll find session data, and things like that.
That's a really good point.
I'm not sure if we have a document like that. If not, probably one should be created. Would you mind
just doing a quick session? We could go through a session and record that, as a future session, kind of walk through each element of where it's at. It'd be valuable.
That's an excellent idea. I know there's a lot of questions when people are working with live preview versus working preview. Sometimes they'll open something up in live preview, it looks perfect, but they'll go to working preview and this image didn't load, or that font didn't load, or something like that.
And also sometimes they'll vice versa also. We've seen that happen too.
Mm-hmm. So we have a question here asking about the code library we were talking about. They said that on the Web Projects tab in Alpha Anywhere, there's an XBasic function library and an XBasic module. Do those relate to what you showed today, or are they different entities altogether?
Where was that located again? I'm sorry.
So Web Projects. Well, I think this Web Projects control panel, I guess.
Yeah.
Click on
the
that
function library and the XBasic modules.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah. Okay. Let me give a little history. Absolutely. These functions right here allow you to basically create code that can be included in your application. Let me show, first we're on the Web Projects control panel, which is the more modern panel. This is the code editor, and let me go ahead and close out some of these things so I can get rid of the code editor. Okay, I'm going to go to the control panel. Now this was where Alpha started out. When you worked with Alpha before, when you were doing DBF and things like that, it was all in this environment here, and they had this code tab here. And in this code tab you could create different things. You could create scripts, You could create functions, you could create class libraries, enumerations, things like that. Now, the important thing to realize about that is that this information right here, it's essentially part of the workspace. And so when you go to move, so this lives right here on the development machine. When you go to put it up onto a server, so when you do the publish step, and I'm opening up there, when you're ready to publish it to the server, the important thing you always have to remember is compile functions into an AEX file, because that takes that code you did in the code area, puts it into a DLL, a library, that then moves up to the library, so then all of that code is accessible when it's running on a different machine. It comes from the history where you would develop on this app and then you'd copy it to another PC and it would run there and they'd need to have those functions there. So it all works fine, but you have to make sure to do that there. Now, when Alpha V12 came out, version I think 2, Alpha added in the XBasic function library and the XBasic module. And basically these are now just files of code that you can have available. And so now they're in your file system, they're part of your web solution as just a file. And so when you go to publish to the other machine, the web app server, it just moves that file up there and you're off to the races. How you use it is a little differently, but the benefit of it is now these are just files. So if you want to add it to a different project, all you have to do is copy that file from that project to the other, and you now have all of your functions that are available. And that's where you can, over time, build these function libraries to help you be more productive and pieces there. So these pieces are kind of tied and integrated into the workspace. When you want to go to your server, you have to actually compile them and put them up there. If you forget it, then sometimes that. So Alpha introduced this module concept, which is patterned after JavaScript Node. It's how JavaScript does it, is basically they have files of code that you can move around that are available, and it's much more, because you can use them for source control, you can check them into source control, you can share them with other projects. They're a much easier way to manage these kind of code libraries pieced together. So the library I showed you are for helping you during the development of the code. That it exists with the workspace. So like when I'm actually in developing and like I said, I'm doing an XBasic thing and I have the code library, that is just a construct of the development environment. So that kind of lives, stays with the development environment. For code that's actually going to be part of your application that's going to run out, that's where you actually use it. So one is just to help you develop code quickly to make things go faster and easier. This is actually the code for your application that will go with your code, your application up to the server. So they're really meant for different things. This, when I have this code library here, that code library will not be moved up to the server. It stays on your development machine. It's just basically a very smart clipboard that is available for you as a developer. The code that's on your functions and modules will stay as part of your code, and we'll go from there. So I hope that explains it a little differently. One's really just a development aid. The other one is actually where your code lives for your application, and again, it's a file that goes on there, and it's really the way to go now because it's much easier to manage your code and distribute it, check it into source control, and do other things along those lines from there.
Thank you very much. A couple of housekeeping things. A few people have asked where do we find previous sessions. We do have a video library which I suggest you check out, which is alphasoftware.com/video library. But for finding the webinars in particular, it's better to use our slightly old video searching box. It's just updated more frequently. And I've given a link to that. That's the one I keep saying at the beginning of all the webinars, videos.alphasoftware.com. But I've given you actually the complete link in the chat window. So if you click on that, basically it takes you to an Alpha Anywhere application online, and you can do a search for Q&A, and you will find lots of webinars there. Someone had just mentioned that they saw in our video library that they hadn't seen a new session since November 18th, but we actually have 6 sessions since up there. So if you follow that link in the chat window, that'll get you there.
What are they thinking we're slacking off here or something like that? Hey, Dev.
Well, someone says the page. No, the page is working for me. So someone wants to check on that.
Well, your link is really, if you look at the link,
It looks like
part of the link, it's
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's
so
the part that's working. Let's see. Let me just.
That is a long link, by the way. That is a super long link.
You can't remember that?
That is
all right.
Yeah. It's only for developers.
Oh, okay.
Ooh, I like that one.
Here, that one's better. Click on that one, and it's still hard to remember. But yeah, do a search here for Q&A. And if you do it, and then you can search them by date. So I usually, do reverse chronological date. You just click on the date column, and you will find the missing sessions.
I know.
They are all there in this database.
So if you're fighting insomnia, then by all means pull that up, start watching them. We'll take care of that problem for you in no time at all.
All right, I'm looking through for other questions. I don't see a lot of questions today. I know, our invite went out a little bit late, so we have plenty of
no problem. Here. And remember, guys and gals,
send them in ahead of time.
Questions in.
Yeah.
That really allows us to make, and we also
would do examples. We can. Yeah, it's much better. So guides at alphasoftware.com if you've got questions.
But beware, if you ask that question, it could be 15 minutes before you get the answer. So that's the only downside of that part.
Yeah, that's true. It could be up to.
We tend to elaborate a little bit.
Yeah.
This should be like the Academy Awards. You should have like you start playing a piece of music.
Yeah, the music starts coming on. I'm like, I'm sorry, Dan, you've explained that too long.
Get off stage.
Yeah. If you guys want to, here's an interesting one. Someone has a grid, and they want to convert it to a UX with the same controls in it. How would you go about doing that? Let's say you were modernizing an application. Let's say it was a web app, and you were going to a UX. Any hints or suggestions, or just make a list of your fields and start doing it?
Well, okay, so you have a grid and you want to turn it. Well, I'll show you a little trick. There's no real way to convert a grid directly into a UX. There's just no mechanism to do that. But if you want to create a data-bound UX, there's actually a trick on how to do that. So I'm going to go to my Web Projects control panel. I'm going to slow down here. And I'm going to select Web Components. And I'm going to create new.
Here, I'm going to just prompt you as, let me just, okay.
Yeah, in case I get it, I'm going to kind of try and do it.
All right.
So basically, I'm going to create a web component.
All right.
And in this case, I'm going to click Next. Oh, wow. Wow. Man,
no,
really
I'm telling you, we're like 5 seconds behind today at least. Actually, it's almost all put together. You've clicked New Component or File. All right. And now, appearing on the screen, slowly, oh yeah, this is ridiculous. It says New File. So you're going to choose Web Component and click Next.
Next. Okay.
And I'm now on the New File. And you're going to choose UX.
Correct. Click Next. Okay. Now remember, we have a whole bunch of templates, so if you want to use a template, you're more than welcome. It'll actually speed the development, especially if you're doing mobile things. But I'm just going to click OK. So, and in a moment, when it catches up, it's going to bring up the UX Builder.
Okay. It's just clicking OK right now.
Yeah, we do have like a 4-second, 5-second delay.
And now we're at the UX Builder.
Great. So this is the UX Builder. Very important is note, I always like to also show that right here are a whole bunch of videos on how to use the UX Builder. So, everywhere you're going to find a lot of information regarding that, how to build disconnected mobile applications, things like that. But for now, what I'm going to do is going to click Controls. In a moment, the screen will refresh to show blank screen because I didn't start with any kind of template there.
Yep.
And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select the text box control right here. And it's going to open up this screen, which is adding a new control. Now, yours may look like this in case of just creating a single control. So you'll see in a moment the screen will refresh. It'll look a little differently. That's if you want to create one and only one control at a time.
Mm-hmm.
But often I use the create multiple new controls at once. And this looks a little different wherein I could just type a list of controls I want to create in here and actually have it generate multiple controls at one time. But there's actually an even cooler trick that's available when you're in the create multiple new controls at once. In the lower left corner in a second, you'll see populate list from a table. So that grid is most likely bound to a table. And so what we're going to do is we're basically going to create a UX that's bound to that table. Now we could do that manually by adding in all there, do the data binding, etc., but we can speed that up significantly. So I just click populate list from a table, and in a moment you'll see a new pop-up is going to come up. And basically, it's a wizard that's going to ask me, okay, great, you want to create these controls from a table. Well, where do I find that? So you'll notice that, and I've got a connection string here, which is first the connection string I've already built. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go through and let it catch up, just because it's kind of a series of dialog boxes. But I go through and I select that. So I could have multiple database connection strings, one going to an Oracle, an Access, a SQL Server, and then I pick the one I want to. So in a moment after it refreshes, you'll see that I've set my connection string to connection, which in this case is a local database on my system. So once I've selected that connection string, I'm ready to now say, okay, great, what is my table name? And so, in Dave, we at where it's showing the connection string filled in? Is it still catching up?
Name, : CONN is what it says.
There you go. So now I'm going to click table name, and what it's going to do is open up another dialog that shows me all the views and tables that are in that database. So you find out, well, this grid was, say, connected to the customers table. That's what I would like to use from there. So you'll notice it shows you all the different ones that are available. You can filter it on top. You can actually type in. So if you have a lot of tables in your solution, you can fix that very quickly. So I click OK. So in a moment, you'll see that now I have selected the connection string, the table, and you'll notice right now it's selected as all fields. I'm going to leave that there. And you'll see down below the data binding. So first I'm saying, yeah, go ahead and bind this to the table for me so I don't have to go through and do that. Also, it's got some other cool little features like add load primary keys, add a save submitted data, add record navigation button. So I can actually create a fully data-bound UX in a matter of a few moments. So I'm just going to keep the default items and click OK. So you'll notice that it immediately goes ahead and fills out the different fields and their types. You know, it's saying field, type, and then the type there. So we'll know how to do that. And then once I'm good to go, I click OK. Once I could go in here and delete one or two if I didn't like them, make some little adjustments and stuff like that, and I click OK. And in a moment, you'll see that it's going through and literally building my form for me. So it's building all these elements. So you'll see now it's asking me a question. So in a moment, you'll see it's going to pop up another question, which is, should I enable the expression? Which means that I've got a submit button on there. Do you want me to basically highlight that button if the form is dirty, which is sort of the normal, like, you know, don't allow them to submit unless they've changed something. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And in a moment, you'll see that it's generated not only my text fields, but also a set of buttons and a set of buttons for navigation. So let me know when all those fields are showing on the screen, Dave. And
yep, they're there.
Oh yeah, super hot, regular. Okay, so I'll go into working preview now. And so now it's going to render my form, and it's not pretty, but it's there. And you'll notice that I've got a customer ID. It's already pulled up the first record. It's built this form for me.
All right, hang on.
I can then
just load it down. Okay. So now we can.
Okay, good. So it's already populated. Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's got all the buttons. So I could modify this, click submit, click new record, go back, next, forward. It's all pre-wired for me. So the first step would be to create. Then I can modify this to make it look pretty good. And work properly from within the system. So my first step would be to go ahead and use these kind of wizards to kind of take those grids and kind of turn them into UX forms. And then if you want to make them more lists, then the next step is to then generate lists and put them on. But that's not enough topic for that today. But play with this just to initially make your edit. And you'll notice when I click next, it walks me through each of those records step by step by step because of all these things. And what's really nice about that is that you can go in and start looking at these different buttons and the code behind them to see how it built it, to kind of get a feel for how the system builds these forms for you.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Dion. We have about 15 seconds left. I have one question that we can answer. Someone had written in and asked about Liberty Manuals. Liberty Manuals is a third-party site that does manuals on Alpha Anywhere. I think it's just libertymanuals.com, but if you Google Liberty Manuals and Alpha Anywhere, you'll definitely find them. So the question is, are these any good for a newbie? What have you heard? So I've actually looked through them. I think they're really, really good for new people. So, if you're interested in getting some printed documentation, it's also available as electronic download. Liberty Manuals is I would recommend them, and I've heard great things from other people who have used them. So that's all the time that we have for today. Thank you very much, Dion, for presenting. Thank you, everyone, for attending and for asking questions. I hope to see you next week. A copy of this recording will be at videos.alphasoftware.com. Take a look at the link in the chat window. Before I close this down, you can use that link. Also, if you do have any questions between now and next Wednesday, please send them to guides, G-U-I-D-E-S, at alphasoftware.com. Thank you again, and I hope to see you at a future webinar. Take care, and goodbye.